Hey everyone, welcome to the next Powers Power episode. We are thrilled to have Lon Cunninghis back from DG Matrix, of the Chief Commercial Officer for them. It's the second time he's been with us, and I think the last time was mid-February, so we're going to get all caught up on all things going on in his world. Also with Eamon O'Malley from Capital PLC and our podcast mate Clinton Smith might be along later. If not, then that's Clinton S. Smith, and the Dawn Run is his newsletter on Substack. I'm Phil Pinelli, Substack.com, and we're going to get started right now. So great to have you back, Lon. Love having you on board here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to see you. Great to see Eamon. Thank you very much. Lots happened since the last time we were together.
Yeah, and that's what we want to kind of dive into a little bit is what's new, what happened, what's new at DG Matrix, and it might help for those viewers that didn't see the first episode. It might help for you to just cleanly explain what the DG Matrix product does in the company itself.
Absolutely, thank you. So DG Matrix has commercialized the first and only patented multi-port solid-state transformer. Effectively, it is the heart and brains of the energy hub that brings together any source and marries it to any load for data centers, for commercial and industrial clients, and for EV charging hubs. So, for example, you might have grid power, you might have solar power, you might have gen sets, you might have fuel cells, you might have batteries. And all of those things can be connected to our interport device, as it's called, and delivered into either a data center or into a commercial and industrial building, for example, a manufacturing facility or a hospital, or into an EV charging hub. And we're working with all of those different clients. The magic is it brings together all of those different sources and loads. And through the software that's built in, it can do a whole bunch of things. It can bring in AC or DC. It can mix them together and deliver the power as either AC or DC. It can manage different sources and loads to provide the cheapest electricity, to provide renewable energy, to provide universal power. So we get rid of UPS systems that are typically located inside of buildings or data centers, and we act as a UPS in conjunction with a battery. And the bottom line is it's revolutionary technology that is getting a lot of play, especially in the data center market. And we'll talk a little bit why here in a few minutes as we talk about what's happening around data centers and power.
Nice. Eamon, why don't you go first?
Yeah, well, I guess kind of one of the bigger, larger announcements since the last time we talked was DJ Matrix closing a $60 million Series A, which was through Engine Ventures and a number of other venture companies like Chevron, Clean Energy Ventures, a number of others. I'd love to hear more about that, what went into that process, and maybe like what's happened since.
So absolutely. So we closed $60 million. So now the company's capitalized at about $105 million that we raised. As you said, the Engine Ventures, which is the MIT Deep Tech Venture Fund, led this round. We also had a bunch of new investors join, like Helios Climate Ventures, Fine Structures Ventures, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and I'll come back and talk about them in a second, Sabanci, My Climate Journey, and then our original investors, Clean Energy Ventures, who led the initial round, along with ABB, Cerberus, Chevron, Piedmont Partners. All of them funded this second round as well. So we are in a wonderful place right now, and we're really focused on two things. The first thing is focused on delivering more product to the marketplace. So we've delivered our 200 kilowatt product. We're about to release our 400 kilowatt product. We have a sidecar product that basically sits next to the rack in data centers and helps manage the pulse loads. And we can talk more about that as well. as it relates to NVIDIA and the next generation of chips that are coming out. And we have a medium voltage solid state transformer that we'll be releasing towards the end of next year. So a lot of money is going into product development and growing our engineering team, which now we have about 350 engineers, 21 of them who are PhDs. So we have the world's largest solid state transformer team in the world.
Wow.
The second thing we're doing is focusing on production. So we started with a offshore production facility, which is really our R&D lab and prototype lab. We're about to commission our first factory in Raleigh. It's about 5,000 square feet. We can do 400 to 500 megawatts per year. But we have a building literally across the parking lot, 54,000 square feet. And when we commission both of those, we'll be able to do about 4.5 gigawatts per year. We're talking to several different contract partners who you probably know. I won't talk about it, confidential, but at the end of the day, there's some pretty large electrical manufacturing contract companies in the US that we're working with, and we're looking potentially at a site in Mexico. One of our board members used to run GE, one of the GE divisions, and built a factory in Mexico. So he's very connected to the Mexican government and the folks down there, and we're having conversations about that. Interestingly enough, I think the last time we talked about the UAE, and particularly either Dubai or Abu Dhabi. And given the challenges that have happened in that arena over the last couple of months, we've kind of pivoted to Mexico, which actually is a benefit because it's a lot closer and we can get things here same time zone, couple hours instead of days, et cetera. So big focus on new product and big focus on managing and supporting the growth. We've got about 2 gigawatts of pipeline right now for primarily data centers, although electrification, microgrids as well. Some of it delivering at the end of this year and certainly into 27, some into early 28. So we're scaling quickly to meet the demand.
Right.
Do you feel like you're able to keep ahead of that demand with what you've got planned? Okay, good. No bottlenecks.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We've built a modular production cell, and each of those production cells is about 5,000 square feet. And everything is automated. We use automated tools. We use systems, manufacturing systems, et cetera. We can literally pick it up and replicate it in 3 to 4 months. Mm-hmm. So even as we go into this 54,000 square foot factory, we can build 5,000 square feet at a time. So, 4, 5, 6 months getting it up to speed. Typically, we're getting orders about a year in advance of what a client needs. So we've got plenty of time to meet demand and build, and we're obviously building ahead of it.
And the permitting process up in Raleigh area, is it pretty easy to maneuver? Is it kind of difficult?
Permitting process for us or clients?
What for you guys to get the facility up?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, where we are in Raleigh, it's the Silicon Valley of the East.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Every technology company on the planet has a facility here, and of course, we have all of the great universities in this area as well. So there is no lack of interest in focusing on growth, and certainly bringing a facility like this is going to be very positive. And we'll do a grand opening and make a lot of noise. So
good.
Right.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So you have another one, Eamon? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to point out, the Research Triangle must be an incredible space, not only for, I guess, interest, but also competition. I'm sure you're able to map out other competitors pretty well, just being so close, proximity-wise. But yeah, I mean, the reliability is so impressive, I think. I think I read something that basically the Interport specifically was supposed to use 10 like basically used about 10 to 50% of the legacy um systems overall generation. So just like completely kind of making the efficiency much more scalable. So um yeah, and it's so great that you're able to plan so far in advance too for clients, because obviously with so much load growth like changing, it's really hard to identify. So yeah, really, really exciting.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting when we talk about value for a client. In fact, I had this conversation with three different clients today. You know, the first question they ask is, well, how much does it cost? And the answer is, that's the wrong question. The question is, what's the value that it brings? So you talked about efficiency, meaning we're able to provide more throughput in terms of power and energy than in a legacy system where you've got so many different devices and conversion, et cetera. We've looked at that. Typically in a traditional architecture, there's about high 80s of efficiency, which means you've got, 10 to 12, 13% losses. We're up to 98, 98.5%. So being able to provide throughput alone, right, additional power is worth a significant amount of money. By the way, I think I mentioned this last time. Every megawatt is worth 10 to 12 million dollars a year for a data center. So when you start adding up the increased throughput on power, there's also a thing called stranded power. And let me explain what I mean. So I talked a minute ago about AI pulse loads, right? One of the things that you guys probably both know is that when people are training, especially in an AI data center, the power fluctuations are dramatic, and they can go from 50% to 150%, and they can do it multiple times a second. And that creates all kinds of harmonics and transients that will flow back into the grid, into generators, which will shear the shafts off the generators. It'll flow back into traditional, batteries. They die within days. None of the equipment, the traditional equipment, was designed to handle that many power fluctuations in that short amount of time, right? So the bottom line is that we protect the grid, we protect all of that equipment. To prepare for that, though, what happens typically is you have overhead. So you might say, I need 200 megawatts of power, but I'm only going to use 150 because I need to keep 50 clear to manage those transients, yeah. Which means you've got 50, you've got 50 megawatts of stranded power that you're just not using.
Right.
Well, with our device, we open that stranded power up. And that, again, is worth sometimes tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last piece, and probably the biggest piece, is about speed. And the number one challenge today is around power. Getting power is a huge issue, especially for data centers. And there's a lot of things that are happening with regulatory environments and everything else, which we can talk about. But at the end of the day, we help clients bring their data centers on quicker. And typically 3 to 6 months. I had a client tell me 18 months this morning. And we started doing the calculation in terms of what that's worth to them. And we're talking billions of dollars. So a lot of value in what we provide. How much it costs is the wrong question.
Absolutely. I think what's been going on, and that's been a question that's been problematic for the industry. That's, the AI industry as it develops. A great example of that was I just rewatched a small clip from Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, and he was saying, "Hey, it's the wrong question to ask how much, because if you got a $50 billion AI factory, clearly 20 billion of that's going to be in the property, and then another in the shell. And, it runs up to about 40 billion." Right. Before you get to that last 10 billion, which is where the cooling and all the other pieces. So when you get down to just the GPUs and the stack, you're talking about still a lot of money. But if it can return the tokenization to a point where it's so much more plentiful, yep, and so much quicker, then all that money is going to be. It's not an issue of comparing me to the competition. It's a matter of you internally as an organization building out this data center to understand how much more money you can make and how quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you're going to see more and more AI factories popping up, which are, doing training, but also doing inference. And
Yeah.
I think as new generations of chips come out, the new chips will continue maybe to do training, but I think there's going to be a much more proliferation of inference data centers. I think you're going to see smaller data centers. I mean, they have these, big, massive gigawatt data centers that they're going to. We'll see how many of those actually get built. I
Only
think
only so
something
many
will.
companies can build those.
Right. And the other issue is where are you going to build it? Are you going to
Yep.
get the power? Are you going to get the water? Are you going to get the land? Is the community going to support you? Because there's starting to be huge uprisings in different places, unfortunately. It's a lot more difficult to build those monster, except maybe in West Texas or places like that, where you've got a lot of gas and not a lot of people and a lot of land. So,
Yeah.
in fact, Texas now is ground zero for data centers. It's the number one state in terms of planned data centers in the country.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Makes a lot of sense. So talk to us a little bit about uh, what you've been seeing on the road and how it's complementary to what you guys are doing, and anything within the partnership arena that is okay for you to discuss. It's not too much under the the tablecloth right now for
Yep.
partnerships.
Well, and I can talk generally about what we're seeing and then maybe some specifics. But so there's a couple things. We talked about the power issue, right? I mean, that's been known, and I think that's going to continue. In fact, my office in Raleigh over the last 3 days, the power's been blipping. Literally, it's been 95 degrees here. And the power went out for about an hour today, which was very interesting. And
Wow.
there's been a lot of predictions around the fragility of the grid based on this, proliferation of data centers. So we're starting to see it in our office, but power is an issue. The second thing is all the uncertainty around the switch to 800 VDC. And we're having the beautiful thing about our technology is that it's multi-port, as I said before, and we have AC ports and DC ports. And that means that you can bring AC or DC in and you can deliver AC or DC out. And that's not typical of a traditional data center architecture, which is all AC.
It's a game
And
changer.
everybody's scratching their head today and going, okay, I know this 800 VDC is coming. I don't know when. I'm about to make a whatever multi-billion-dollar investment in this data center. Is it going to be obsolete? Or is it going to be relegated to something that's not going to generate as much money because I can't leverage the latest and greatest chips and 800 VDC, et cetera, et cetera? Well, with our technology, you can do both. So you can continue to run AC and you can run DC, or you can slowly migrate from AC to DC. So the future proofing has eliminated a lot of the concern, at least in the folks that we're talking to, about I know DC is coming, I just don't know when. And I don't know what it means, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty, and obviously NVIDIA is working like crazy to bring out the Vera Rubin and some of their other chips, and it's going to be interesting over the next couple of months and years, kind of to see where things go.
Yeah, quick point about the need to oversupply power for the peak moments. A lot of people, consumers mostly, few businesses as well, don't realize that even the grid has to be built in such a way that peak moments. That's why you get those ads saying, "Hey, don't run your washer, your dryer, your dishwasher. Don't run those at peak moments of the day because we need to save the grid's power and it's more expensive." Blah blah blah. Well, they're doing the same thing. They're trying to have a 130% buffer for those moments when it's going to bounce against the peak of that. But at night, when everybody's pretty much sleeping, it drops way down, and that's a time that they need to balance that. So that's the difficult part. And with our grid being as old as it is, infrastructure wise, that's a common, and it has been a problem, but this is exacerbating it for a very quick period.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, I don't remember what the number is, but I think it's like only 40% of the grid is actually utilized, if you will,
I
because
think you're right.
to your point, except during the peak period, the rest of the time it's underutilized. But that's why behind the meter power is becoming so important.
Almost mandated at this point.
Well, absolutely. And typically what we're seeing with our data center customers is the first thing they do is they see how much power they can get from the grid. Right. Then they supplement it with typically gensets, right, with gas. They put batteries in, and there's different types of batteries, and I'll come back to that in a second, and we'll talk about those pulse loads and how we handle them. They might use fuel cells, and in some cases they might use solar. But at the end of the day, it's sort of it's a hodgepodge of different sources, which is where the value of our technology comes in, because we take all of those sources, we mix them together and deliver them to the data center. Pulse load. So what we're doing is we have a couple of partners. One of them is Sashi, which is a battery and supercap company. And we're working with them to manage the pulse loads. Basically, what we do is connect a supercapacitor to one of the ports in our device. And because of the capabilities of the software, when the device recognizes a pulse load coming from the rack, we know to route it into the supercap, which means it's not going back to the grid. It's not going into maybe a longer duration battery. It's not going to a generator. And we're providing that protection to all of the different devices. And that's really what the supercapacitor is made to do. It's made to, go from 0 to 100 over and over again, multiple times a second, and absorb those types of power spikes.
Right. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And kind of going back, to the building in kind of more remote areas or supporting the grid. I know I read a quote from your CEO just a couple weeks ago too, saying like, yeah, the next step is building into like microgrids, almost like using technology like that. And specifically, like you said, using the solar and batteries more than natural gas and even nuclear. But I'm just curious for my own interest. I wonder how you manage the expectations of building generation in more remote communities, or even where a lot of people don't have the access right now, where it's like just a total scenario about like a remote village in a very remote area that's not going to be connected to a transmission line. Is that something that you're looking towards or hoping to build generation for, or and how does that fit in?
That's a great question. And I'm going to tell you a story about a deployment we have going in here in just another couple of weeks. But remember, we're not actually doing the generation itself.
Yeah.
What we're doing is connecting the generation sources. But to your question, yes, we're working on several completely islanded data centers where they have no grid power. So they're using fuel cells, for example, or gensets, gas-powered gensets, to provide primary power, and then they might use a battery for backup, and as I said, a supercapacitor maybe to support the transients. So we have a really cool deployment going in Western North Carolina in the Cherokee Nation in the next couple of weeks, and they were hit by the floods, the hurricane last year that came through, and they had some huge issues with their power and their infrastructure. So they built a microgrid, and we're putting our devices in and connecting our interport devices at different hubs inside of the village. And they're going to be used. Remember, our devices are bidirectional, so they're going to use primarily to charge EV school buses. However, the school buses are going to be used as batteries if they have a problem from a power perspective.
Good idea.
They just take the device, they just take the buses, they connect them to our devices, and instead of getting charged, they're sending power from their battery back through our devices, and then we power the buildings. So we're real excited about that. We're gonna make a lot of noise about that opportunity as well. It's really, really cool. Really excited about it.
That's really thinking outside the box too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see more of that. And Eamon, you said you saw the quote. I mean, look, eventually, we believe that the world's going to be powered in part by these microgrids, because you can't build enough transmission lines and generators and things to reach places that are either remote, or you just can't. NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard. Nobody wants that stuff built. So I think you're going to see more and more of these community microgrids and different localized distributed generation hubs come up. So ultimately, which can be controlled, right? In tandem, so that you can help manage and support the grid and support communities, et cetera, and bring power to places that don't have it. Phil's named his podcast "Power is Power." It's a saying that we have as well, right? I mean, when you have power, and there's still a huge percentage of people in this world that don't have power. So ultimately, I think there's an opportunity, and as I said, we can build and deploy in months. So that's sort of the longer term vision and goal of the company. Today, we're riding the data center gold rush.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so many things that remote villages, properties and places that are on the outskirts of, the African cities, for example, where the idea of Starlink now gives them the possibility for a telephone to connect to the world. This is similar, what you're talking about, with the microgrids potentially down the road. And there's just a lot of things that AI in general and this movement to power is going to have so many other ways of helping humanity.
Agreed. Well, it's about super intelligence at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I read there was a editorial by Bernie Sanders this morning.
Oh, there you go.
And he was talking about how AI and robots together, and Jensen talked about this too at GTC. I mean, AI is not just sort of a technology; it's an infrastructure, if you will. And when you put the two of them together, Bernie was lamenting the fact that a lot of people and a lot of industries are going to lose jobs. And in some respects, he's probably right. It's going to be interesting to see where the world goes.
It's going to be hard. I've been saying this on podcasts. I've been saying it in my blog. People don't want to hear it, especially the younger generation for the most part. My sons are always saying, "Dad, people don't want to hear that." I'm just letting them know that we're going to have 3 to 5 years of real difficult times before we get through that era and into more of an era of abundance where things can be better. And it's nothing we can control. We can't stop it at this point, nor should we, because we're also, as part of that pain, we're going to cure a lot of disease. There's a lot of really cool things coming that you have to just be hopeful for while you're going through this process of, wow, I'm not happy with where we're at, in society. It's just how it has to work. And you know what's funny about that is if the governments, and I'll just use US government for now, if they got ahead of the curve with this thing, they could narrow that span of time way down. But everybody wants it to be broken first before they rush to do anything about it, because that's how most politics around the world work.
Yep.
Like look how long we've kicked the can down the road for Social Security as an example. That's just one
Yep.
example. Or not having a national medical plan, another example. So you really have to wake up. I even wrote a recent newsletter that said, "Get your head out of the sand," and it was really pointed more at the senators and congressmen to think about ways of making this smoother rather than picketing in front of data centers and in front of AI institutions, because we can make it a lot better. So anyway, let's switch off of that.
But I'm just going to make one point, right?
Yeah, sure.
This is a race and it's a war.
Absolutely.
And the U.S. has an opportunity, as you suggested, to win the war on super intelligence or cede it to countries like China.
We can't afford that.
Yeah.
We cannot afford that. You'll be in pain for a long time beyond that 3 to 5 years period. Well, let's switch the comment though. Let's move toward, you mentioned Mitsubishi early on. Can you talk a little bit more about what you guys are doing with Mitsubishi?
Yeah, so Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, they're about a $40 billion company. In fact, we were just with them in Houston last week at their headquarters. They're in every business that you can think of. Interestingly enough, Mitsubishi is a global brand, and there's a whole bunch of different Mitsubishi companies under that, like Mitsubishi Power, et cetera. But Mitsubishi Heavy Industries specifically invested in us, and we're working with them on, leveraging their technology. So they do cooling, they do gensets, they do a bunch of different things to support the infrastructure around data centers primarily, but also other things. And we're working to integrate our product into them. It's just one of, we're working with, 6 or 7 different companies where we are integrating our technology into skids, into modular types of capabilities, because clients aren't coming to us and saying, "Hey, I want an SST." They're coming to us and saying, "I need power." Or they're coming to us and saying, "I need to get my data center up as fast as possible." We had a call today with a modular data center company that we're working with. So they basically construct a data center in a factory, and then they ship it off, plop it down, and plug it in. Well, we're going to put our modular power platform next to their modular data center, and bing, bang, boom, they get up and running quickly. So modularity and repeatability versus the legacy architecture, which was all bespoke. And it took a long time. It was complex. It was expensive. That's where the world is going. And, as I said, I think you're going to see smaller modular, and we're working with multiple integrators because we want to be a big part of that.
Of course.
You
can't ignore everything. You'd be a mistake, right?
We can help them drive revenue, and we can help our joint clients drive revenue.
We actually did a small portion, Eamon and I, of a podcast about that modular idea of a data center, and mentioned a company or two that was on the verge of being able to start providing it. So that's cool. It's good to see.
Yeah, and it reminds me so much of the comparison with the small modular reactors. I guess just being modular in size or construction, but yeah, to be able to build and replicate it using like the economies of scale is, I think, the biggest thing. And I know like a lot of these companies like Oklo for the small modular reactors are trying to like ramp up the production now so that they can get it so repeatable to not only like build more but also reduce the total time and cost. So I'm sure, yeah, it be very excited. I'm very excited to look out for more.
Agreed. It's the cleanest renewable energy that there is, right? And it's going to be interesting to see how quickly they proliferate.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while.
Yeah, I think so. But
I don't think we're talking 27, 28 just yet. It's going to be a while.
Yeah.
I was reading something, actually putting it out in a form of a note on Substack, that the average mine for mining, whether it's materials that are needed for AI or commodity materials. The average mine in North America takes 29 years
Wow.
from the time that you buy the property to the time you actually get those big, huge shovels from those big, huge machines in the ground. 29 years. So all of us talking about companies like MP Materials and saying, wow, the government invested in them. We're going to get this going right away. It's like, even with federal government pushing it, you still have issues around state government. You have issues around local government. There's just a lot of things that have to go right before you can actually start producing the kind of materials we need for the future. So we're going to continue to have to get these things overseas.
And I'm sure that a lot of communities are going to be very happy about having small nuclear reactors in their backyard, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of them are being done away from that environment, or they're very either pro red states or pro technologies. You mentioned Texas as an example, being pretty pro technical because they have all the means with which to be able to handle these new data centers. So I think that's where you go first. But Eamon, you got another question?
Yeah, no, thanks again. I super quickly, I know you mentioned most of the pipeline for GA Matrix is most of the data centers, but you also have a little bit in like the electric vehicle fleet charging.
Yes.
Just wondering how that's going. Obviously with the tax credits all pretty much gone for electric vehicles. How is that being managed or
Yeah, no,
under prioritized? Yeah.
that is a great question. We're still I mentioned the school buses. I would kind of call that a fleet sort of charging, although it's more of a microgrid type of environment. But we've got two very specific fleet charging companies we're working with. One of them will be doing a proof of concept here in the next couple of months, and the other one probably shortly thereafter. But we're still seeing that some of the delivery companies and even some of the large, big trucks are moving towards electric vehicles. I mean, it's certainly happening in the rest of the world. We know that things have slowed here in America, but at the end of the day, that's not going to go away. And these large corporations have sustainability goals that they need to achieve. And one of the ways they can do it is by going to EV trucks. I'm sure you've seen the Amazon trucks on the road everywhere, right? So, yeah, the fleet charging business is still proliferating. And as I said, we've got two clients we're working with that have big plans to grow all over the US very quickly. We're also talking to some folks in Australia and some other places. Talked to someone yesterday in Japan who wants to build 1,000, actually, I'm sorry, 40,000. They want to deploy 40,000 chargers. So,
Wow, that's
okay, we can help. And by the way, that our Interport actually doubles as a charger, right? So you can use two or more of the 6 ports as actual dispensers to charge vehicles.
wow.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So you don't need to bring another charger in. We have we have dispensers that hang right off of the device.
Wow.
Are you I know it's early on, but are you able to see which of the types of power that you're going to help support the loads on and the bespoking on are going to get there first? It's going to be battery first. It's going to be nuclear. Is it going to be which of these newer things that we're trying to scale up look like they have the best promise? I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Well, let's go back to the point about Texas and data centers. It's typically gas, right? I mean,
Yeah, but that's already here, right? I'm
it,
talking about the ones that aren't already here. I mean, are
well,
we going to do
there's
more
still
renewable?
there's still a lot of talk about hydrogen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and in fact, I just saw that the large truck manufacturers in Europe, Mercedes, Volvo, and I don't remember who the other one was, have just formed a consortium to try and drive the proliferation of hydrogen because it's cheaper, it's zero emissions. You don't have that heavy battery in the truck that you're carrying around, and it's hard to proliferate. It's expensive, but once it's done, it doesn't cost a lot of money, and it's basically completely zero emission, and the range on it is unbelievable. So I think over time you may see more and more hydrogen. In fact, we did talk to a company who was looking at doing some um, hydrogen, power for data centers. But now I think remember it's about speed. So people want to get what they can get as fast as they can get it. And as I said, it's grid first typically, then it's gas,
Right.
obviously a battery, but that's not long term. That might be a couple hours, and then maybe something else to supplement it.
Right.
Cool. It's good to know. I think that you're right. It's so competitive that it's what can you give me now? So it makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else we didn't touch on yet? I know we're passing 40 minutes here. So is there anything you wanted to make sure that you wanted to talk about relative to DG Matrix and what you guys are up to and what to look out for and all those good things?
No, I think we covered most of it. Just to say that, wow, what an amazing time to be in this business. Power is a precious commodity, and we're helping provide it. AI data centers are going to change, as you said, the world, and they're doing it very quickly. It's clear that NVIDIA is going to lead that charge. They're more than just a chip maker now. They
Yeah.
own the infrastructure, and I know you've seen some of the reports about where they're going. We've been working with them for a couple of years, and actually, I'll tell you a very quick story. I might have told it last time, but we started as an EV charging company, and then we shifted into more C&I microgrids when the political winds changed in America. Well, one day we got a call, and a guy called us out of the blue, and he started asking a bunch of questions, and we answered them. And then he said, "I've got two more for you." He said, "Does this work?" And we said, "Of course it works." And he said, "Well, can you put it in data centers?" And we said, "Well, I don't know, why not?" And he said, "Well, I'm the chief architect for data centers for NVIDIA, and we've been watching you. And as this whole 800 VDC comes out and these new chips and everything, we believe that you're going to be able to deal with some of the issues and problems that will come." So over the last 2 years, we've been working with NVIDIA. In fact, when we were at GTC, we had dinner with them and had a meeting with them. And one of their senior people was in our office today. And we're helping them manage and build the infrastructure for 800 VDC. And it's interesting because of the flexibility we have, unlike some of our competitors who will have specific SKUs depending upon what NVIDIA rolls out. And quite frankly, they're still working through iterations and not 100% certain as to what it's going to look like and what it's going to look like after that. And the answer for DG Matrix is it doesn't matter. Bring it.
Yeah, it's huge for you guys.
Nice,
So they're very, very excited about working with us. And I think you're going to see some announcements here in the not too near future about our relationship and where it's going. So
look forward to that. A great deal. We should also talk down the road again, if you wouldn't mind, somewhere around the June, July timeframe, get caught up on what you guys are up to.
I'd love to. And I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Chief Commercial Officer Lon Cunninghis from DG Matrix, Eamon O'Malley from Capacity PLC on Substack. And this has been Power is Power, which was coined by Lon Cunninghis to the podcast mates that we adopted from him. So, people ask me all the time, so what does this mean? I'm like, it's the word in between that matters. Power is power. We got to put more emphasis on the is.
Right on.
All right. You have a great
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. Great to see you guys. See ya.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.